Welcome to episode 157 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to acclaimed solo artist and multi-instrumentalist Galen Ayers and Paul Simonon, the legendary bassist and occasional vocalist for The Clash, about their new project, Galen and Paul. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Samuel T. Herring from Future Islands. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. After the bilingual charms, international genre-spanning adventures, and picture postcard images of pan-European culture of their debut album, Galen and Paul have released their new EP, Uno Más. In this interview, Galen Ayers and Paul Simonon discuss how they met, their debut album, the new EP, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Galen and Paul. So hi Galen, hi Paul, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you.
Lovely to be here.
Absolute pleasure to have you. I'd like to go back to the start. Can you remember the first band or artist that made... Can you remember the first band or artist that made you both pay attention to music?
The Muppets, for me.
I'll probably, in all seriousness, I would probably say the sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Great band. And in all seriousness, the Muppets was the first album I ever had.
By the way, it was the best musicians on it. My dad and I came this one tape. I was telling Paul about it. Whenever I was annoyed at my dad, I'd make him have to listen and see me dance to Muppet songs. But yeah, I think he enjoyed them. But now looking back on it and looking at the history of the Muppets, all the great musicians were on it playing, right? I mean, they're so good.
How did you dance?
I'll show you later.
Okay.
I have a great Miss Piggy impersonation. Screaming at Kermit.
Okay, I'm glad I've got a free jumper.
But I mean, that and obviously Kevin playing and all his mates. And then very much the Beatles, I would say, was my stock.
So when did you guys first meet each other?
I think we've just met socially over the years, over the last decade or so. Paul comes to Toyah a lot, the place where I grew up. And then we bumped into each other a bunch in London. We had mutual friends. And then
we went to a Damon Albarn concert together, didn't we?
Yeah. And then we went to Damon together with a bunch of friends. And then, that was 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago. And I'd been doing some, I've been doing some painting and I was doing some carving. And then at one point, there was guitar and I just started writing music. And then I came back to London and a friend of ours, he phoned me up. He said, "Oh, Galen's staying at my place." So I sort of went over and we had a conversation about, well, you was initially saying about me playing bass on something.
Very shyly. I was like, play some bass perhaps on some songs.
And I left and then it clicked. It's like, actually, why don't we just start working together? And it started. So Galen had some songs, I had some songs, and we wrote new ones together. It was just like, initially it was just sort of like being really open and honest. I mean, listen, I've never played a song or a guitar in front of one person. So it's a tall order, but I felt, well, let's see what happens. And anyway, Galen's seemed to enjoy the experience. Anyway, we started working together and wrote new songs.
I stayed as friends.
Yes.
Yeah, and the result was Can We Do Tomorrow Another Day, your debut album, which is a fantastic album. And it's just listening to the album, it sounds like you're really having a great time.
Yeah.
Well, we were surrounded by Seb Rochford, Dan Donovan, Simon Tong, and you know what? It was like people I've worked with, some who I've worked with before, but also we had Tony Visconti on board, and it was just like, well, we've got limited time, and we did have like a couple of weeks before recording it, we spent time together in my place, just sort of playing the songs. And it was like, I mean.
And prior to that, Paul and I met pretty much daily for a few months, I think.
That's it.
And we just sit at Paul's round table here and just throw the songs backwards and forwards until we both
felt happy with the result.
You mentioned Tony Visconti. He's a legendary producer. You worked with him before, Paul. Good, the Bad, and the Queen album. How did he get involved in the process, and what did he bring to the recordings?
Well, I sent him some of the demos that we'd done together, and I said, Tony, think about this. And he wrote back saying, you know what, I'd really, really like to get involved with this project. And I was thinking, good. That means you'll be half price.
He was super enthusiastic. And he came a week before we went into the actual studio just to kind of go through the songs with us and look at arrangements and just hang out, really. And also for him and I to get to know each other, which was a pleasure. And we got along right away.
We're both Buddhists.
Yeah, we both have Tibetan Buddhism in common as one of the things. And a love for David Bowie and all things prog. And
what's that?
Is that a sore point? Is it
it's a problem. I
don't even know what it is. What is prog?
And he was fantastic to work with. I mean, it was my first time, but he was just that amount of enough direction that you felt led by a captain, let's say, but enough space to be creative. And there was never any of those things that shouldn't be involved in creative processes, like judgment or hurrying anybody or, or any kind of ego. There was no ego in the whole session. It really felt to me, and I was meeting everybody pretty much for the first time. There was just a lot of friends.
We're all in the same boat, and let's make a great record.
Yeah, and you mentioned you had a great band: Simon Tong, Sebastian Rochford, Dan Donovan, and of course Damon Albarn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was it easy to get them all on board?
Simon Tong, Dan Donovan, not at all, because they're really good friends of mine. And Seb, I've not worked with him before, but I did see him do a concert with Damon when Damon was doing the solo show, and we just had a really good connection. And he was available, and we played together. And I was going, "What? He's really good." It's we were able to speak to each other via the music in terms of rhythm section.
And he has such a breadth of musical knowledge and styles that he loves, and he's just the calmest presence to have in a room, which I think is quite rare for a drummer.
Yeah, but it's interesting. There's one little episode when we was in the studio, and I was playing the song La Deriva. I was playing them the chords, and Simon Tong and Seb were sort of doing quite a happy sort of rhythm.
Yeah,
and I'm going. It sounds good what you're doing, but this song's actually about people drowning. And they went, oh. So suddenly the mood had to change, because they thought it was like, hey, we're at the Copacabana having cocktails. And no, it's not that.
Well, on the flip side of that, the song I've Never Had a Good Time in Paris, it sounds so effortless, and it actually brings a smile to my face, even though it's about putting the city of Paris down. And then, Paul, you even mentioned being gassed in an England shirt, but it makes me feel good.
Yes.
That was very much, most of those lyrics were just ad-lib, Paul and I, one evening, just hanging out, just throwing like things that made each other laugh at each other. And then, and like the last bit when we're chatting, that was just the one take going to the studio just for fun, coming up with that. So that, it's true. It is just spontaneous.
My favorite song on the album is Esmeralda. I love the sound of it. I love your bass, Paul, but I can't speak Spanish. So what's it about?
Neither can I, but you don't know that then, obviously. Esmeralda, it was, it's just this idea of call it a muse, call it your higher self, call it just like talking. For me, personally, I don't want to put too much into it because everybody has their own interpretation and we like that. But I love playing it because it just makes me feel strong, put it that way. So it's just a kind of, it's like a wake up call. The song is very much about wake up. No one cares if you don't wake up. So it's up to you to wake up, and wake up is different for everybody at different stages in their life.
And the album was very well received, but now you've released an EP, the Uno Más EP, or one more, which I've found out that's what it means.
Yes. Did you Google it or did you ask somebody?
No, I Googled it.
Ah!
And it features 4 previously unreleased songs from the same sessions. Again, they're great songs. Why did they not make the final cut for the album?
Well, you know what? It was a difficult one, and this is what I've experienced. Like working with Damon, it's like when we did Good, Bad, and Queen, we had so many songs that, and Damon made a good point. He said, "Let's just let Tony choose the songs." And it was the same situation, because otherwise we'll end up in an argument or like, but what about this one? And we said, Tony, you just choose the songs, and he chose the ones for whatever reasons. So as simple as that, really. We left that for him to decide.
And some of them crept into our live show. Get a Life did, and One More for the Road, I think.
Yeah.
And one of them was released in the Japanese edition, correct? Which one was it? One More for the Road.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I love while we're waiting. I love the lyric. You think like Ginsberg, but you look like Elvis. What can you tell me about that song?
It says it all. It's a self-explanatory lyric, don't you think?
What inspired the sound?
Oh, what inspired the sound? What the sound of the track? Well, it was actually really funny. Can we? Yeah, it was actually, we weren't quite sure about the feel and the sound of it. And at some point, I kind of suggested to Paul, I said, what if we kind of had like a whispery kind of, just to play with the element of time and space? Because it kind of, to me, it evokes, the song evokes that. It was just coming into lockdown. We were all a bit like, kind of stuck, but where are we going? And all this, a lot of overwhelm. It's kind of, while we're waiting, what are we going to do with it? Yeah. And then we had this hilarious evening, which is definitely one of my highlights of the recording session, which was, I'm staying here at Paul's, and it's I was on the top floor, and Tony was recording me whispering on the iPhone to him in his recording studio in New York, whilst Paul was doing the very important job of keeping his dogs quiet downstairs. We had this like whole tension for like an hour recording it, and that was fabulous.
Tony found that quite difficult to deal with after he got off the phone. He said, I've just had this call from Galen, and she's just been whispering me. So people usually pay for that.
It was a long time whispering. So that came about like that.
Could you not have just took the dogs for a walk?
It was quite late at night.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know when to come back.
And I might have needed him. Like, how do I whisper this bit? You never know.
Anyway, it's their dinner time, and they're not going out if it's their dinner time. If they start moaning at me.
What's your personal favorite tracks from the album and the EP? And is there any that really hold a special place for you?
I think One More for the Road is a particular favourite, partly because it mentions Peter O'Toole and Dorothy Dandridge, 2 people that I have swooned over in various degrees. And on the album, it's difficult to say. I'll probably have another idea tomorrow, but I think at the moment, I think Room at the Top. Only because I saw my son today and we was talking about Del Shannon, and I was talking about how that sound was made, and it was a one-off sound. And I said to Dan Donovan, if you get that sound, then we're going to write a song around that sound. Hence, Room at the Top.
Good track. What about you, Galen?
I'm going to be a good mother and not choose favorites. I can't answer. I really can't. I don't know. They're for every song for different for different reason, different part I like the most. I could probably do a composite of all of them. It depends what mood I'm in.
Who's the eldest and who's the youngest?
Yes.
What did you learn from each other recording the album?
Nothing.
Just you took the words right out of my mouth.
That's what I learned. I say it and he just goes, "Oh." No.
You learned that Paul's obedient then?
Oh, yeah. Not.
Playfully rebellious.
If you want Paul to do the opposite of something, tell him to do that, and he'll do the opposite.
Paul, in addition to your musical career, you're also known for your visual art, and you created the cover art for the album and the EP. So how does your approach to visual art differ from your approach to music, and do the two influence each other?
They sort of, you know what, hearing the music, or it sort of throws up an idea in your mind. And what, I don't know why, but initially what came into my mind was that footage of Picasso doing a drawing on a sheet of white glass with white paint. And so the camera's behind the glass filming him doing a drawing. And it was just like a simple line. And I guess it sort of started from that. It's like keeping it simple. And also I was thinking of like neon signs, the way the leg moves or the arm moves, or I don't know, it's a combination of ideas, and, you know, you sort of fine tune it as you go along.
And you've announced 2 headline shows at London's Bush Hall in April 2024. So how much are you looking forward to getting back out onto the road? I know you've done some shows this year.
We can't wait.
Yeah,
we want to do more, but no one can afford us. No, what I'm trying to say, it's really expensive these days.
Yeah.
Because of various things, like going over to Europe. It's like I can only be there for 3 months or something like that. And like all the people that work in the industry, when they're in Europe in the past, they'd do shows for a couple of months with one band. They'd stay in Europe, work with another band. But now they've all got to come back. So there's not much sort of transition or journey between musicians in Europe and vice versa because of these restrictions. So, but
I definitely think that.
Plus, you got to pay for other people to be there, apart from the people that are working with the lights, and I don't know. It's not easy. Well, I was thinking maybe if we got a support slot with the Rolling Stones or Blur or
should we ask them? No, I mean, I don't know. We've spoken about it before, and we're both in agreement. I don't want to drag Paul down with me, but the kind of the Brexit, the kind of collateral damage for the population of artists has just been, it's just decimated, you know, already. I mean, I'm sure, you know, yourself being a creative person, is that already the margins were so small. And now they've just been decimated. I mean, so it's the combination of lack of in any kind of monetary compensation, and also just the amount of sheer paperwork. It's so complicated. So you're either having to pay like somebody to do it, or you have a small indie venue and they don't quite know how to do it, and then they get fined and they're scared of getting fined, etc. So yeah, there really is this big, this double-edged sword that we've all talked about it. We hope is going to get somehow. It's going to get better. It has to, because it's not sustainable, you know. When I spend most of my time in Greece, and nobody talks about coming to the UK anymore as an artist.
At the end of the day, the shows that we've done, it's like we've still got to pay Simon Tong, Dan Donovan. I mean, we both, because I guess it's our project. It's like I don't need any money from it. So I just want to do the shows. But Simon, we have to pay the other guys in the band. And it all adds up. No, what, Simon Tong? What, you want to be in the Hilton Hotel again? No.
Again.
Bed and breakfast for you.
Oh, it couldn't be more opposite. Our team is mate rates and everything. Everyone like helps out with the project. So, but yeah, I mean, but we are pushing for more gigs, and anybody out there who wants us, please reach out to us somehow. We always try and make it work. We do get offers. It's just always trying to make the puzzle work for everybody that helps us out.
What ambitions do you have going forward for the project? I hope there's another album in the pipeline.
Well, we're working on songs at the moment, and it's like any project or any ideas you have going forward. It's you see as far as you can go, and then suddenly you might go off in another direction. Who knows? But we have started writing more songs. Well, we did last year start writing new songs. So, we'll just see how it goes. And the
intentions there, and we'll just see what happens. And we're still having fun.
Just a few more questions, guys. I like to ask my guests the following questions. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Wow, you have so
Paul's laughing.
Well, when we kicked Mick Jones out of the Clash. No, I'm joking. Listen, that was, when we did that, in all seriousness, when we did that, me and Joe was thinking, right, should we just chop our arms off? Yes, right. So that's what we did, because Mick was so important to the Clash that we knew. But that even says that at the height of our game, that we weren't in it for like money or fame or whatever. It was just because our personalities had sort of drifted apart, and thought, well, maybe that's another way of ending it.
The Clash had a profound impact, obviously, in the punk rock scene. And looking back, what do you think contributed to the band's lasting legacy?
Because we did everything on our own terms, and it was thought with integrity. It's like we didn't reform. It was just sort of, you know what, that's what we did then, and so just move on and make new stuff, because it was of that time, really. You know, rather than try and continue the cause and all that sort of stuff. You know, I think, and also I think we didn't expect that we'd sort of be playing Shea Stadium and places like that. And when it gets to sort of rock and roll, well, when it comes to you're playing in stadiums, you're not in touch with the audience anymore, and that's why I would say, to your question, the first time was probably doing shows on the White Right tour when our first album came out, because we didn't expect it to go up the charts like it did, and then suddenly we travelled all over the United Kingdom, and that was exhilarating.
There's a really classic photograph of you in the Clash in Belfast, I think round about back in the Troubles, and I think Royal Avenue in Belfast. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I sure do, yeah. That was, yeah. No, I've got very... actually, you know what? I do have fond memories of that time, because it was like... I guess it's sort of meeting proper local people.
Yeah.
Who were surviving in a war zone, really, at the end of the day. And it was, looking back, it was just a bit strange seeing sort of soldiers that were about 20 years old with bloody guns. It was a bit unnerving.
Yeah, and the great thing was that you guys came to Belfast when not many bands did at the time.
Well, you know, when you're sort of 19, 20, or when you're a young person, you just have that attitude, well, no one's going to stop us. We can go where we like. And it's like, you know, which is a good attitude to have, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Galen? What musical moment would you like to relive?
Like 60% of them. The other ones I want to forget. I don't have one. That's too of a difficult question. I'm so lucky that I've just shared the stage with so many incredible musicians already, and I've enjoyed different things.
You got a T-shirt from the Rolling Stones.
I did. I sang them.
Yeah, Galen sang on stage with the Rolling Stones and with a choir, and her payment was a T-shirt that said that I sang with the Rolling Stones.
Really? And what was the song? What song did you sing?
You can't always get what you want. You know, at the end, the whole choir thing.
Yeah. Wow.
No, that was
Spenders.
And you got a T-shirt?
You got the T-shirt.
And I literally got a T-shirt, yeah, and an apple to eat. Yeah, no, that was pretty epic too. But obviously, I think finally mastering our album was pretty epic, especially because I had a pretty serious accident the day before, so that was quite touch and go. That was quite.
What happened to you?
I fainted on the floor and like planked, and my whole face was scratched open. I'd like lost a couple teeth, broke a few, scratched a few more, my hip, my this, my that. So wow. I showed up to Paul's and he was just like, huh? And I remember we had to listen to the record the next day, and I was just sitting there and just tears were streaming down my face, just listening to this beautiful record and imagining the worst and seeing the best. And so that was pretty.
I thought the tears was because I was standing on your foot.
That day I wouldn't have felt it. I was probably on so many painkillers by then. That was epic. Obviously, nostalgia-wise, sharing the stage with my dad a bunch, and Bridget St. John and Kirsty Newton, and
your dad was in Soft Machine, isn't that right?
Yeah.
For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
I'd say, well, I don't know if they're good memories, but mixed. It is the David Bowie very early, like, what is it, Duran records. It was sort of like the Little Bombardier, London Boys, that period before Ziggy Stardust. I remember there was a double album lying around, and I played it to death. And that was before Ziggy Stardust and all that. I liked it because it sort of reminded me of Anthony Newley, who I really liked.
I think for me, my mind, again, it would be different a different day, but it drifts off to kind of like summery, long days in Spain growing up, kind of listening to a combination of J.J. Cale and Bob Marley, and kind of very mellow and golden and that kind of band.
Sounds awful.
Well, you weren't there.
That's a bit miserable.
I was going to say Leonard Cohen, but then you would have had a whole combination of things to say, which I'm a massive fan of. But
your dad was a fan too, wasn't he?
He wasn't.
Yes, he was.
Not your bag, Paul. No.
I get it, but there's enough gloom living.
There's too many words in it.
There's enough gloom around here to sort of have more gloom.
Brilliant. Well, guys, that's me done. Is there anything you would like to mention before we wrap up? Anything else coming up in the immediate future?
Our friend's birthday party or birthday is coming up. Blooming Christmas is coming. Oh yeah, we might have a Christmas song.
Oh yeah. We started playing around with this Christmas song last year, but it was just too good. It was going to like usurp the album, so we've kept it.
Yeah. So how did it go? It went, have a wonderful Christmas on your fucking own. Hope we get some presents underneath the tree. Da, 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 jingle bells and all that. Anyway, there's a preview.
that has Christmas #1 written all over it. Definitely. Yeah. Well, I look forward to that.
Lovely to meet you, virtually meet you.
Yeah. Well, thank you both very much for the time.
Thank you very much. Really nice talking to you, and I do love your earrings.
They go well with your top.
Thank you. Okay, well, have a nice evening, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.